Okay, so first of all, let's understand as to what this business cycle, trade cycle, or the economic cycle is. How do you understand? How do you make sense out of it? How do is it? How do you use it for the purpose of decision making, or how the government will use this graph for the purpose of deciding the policies? So you can see here, friends, the first half of this graph is showing contraction, and the second half is showing expansion. So that means it is dividing the economy into two phases, a contractionary phase and the expansionary phase. As I was explaining to you a little while ago, the policy of the government will be changing depending on as to which phase the economy is in, right? So अगर expansionary phase में है तो the policies are going to be different. Contractionary phase में है, the policies are going to be different. So that is number one. Remember, the two phases of an economy are contraction and the expansion. Now, what are the stages of the economic cycle? The first is the peak. Peak is the point after which the curve starts falling down. So peak is the point after which the curve starts falling down, and it reaches to a point that is referred as trough. That is referred as trough. So trough is the time when the government has a tough job. Trough is the time when the government has a tough job if the government is responsible. And I'm highlighting it, the government is responsible. Because the government has to be responsible to respond to the economic scenario. And that is what is expected of any government. So trough is the time which is tough for the government, because the government has to proactively work on the policies to ensure the policies are brought out in a way that it gives boost to the economy. It brings the feel good factor in the minds of the people, and that's how they are able to work proactively. So after the trough, when the government takes right kinds of policy, then you have this recovery starts happening. And up to this point, remember, I hope you can see the arrow. Can you see the arrow, my mouse?
Yes.
Okay, good, very good. So remember, this point here is the point of recovery. And recovery, why it is the point of recovery? Because at this point, the economy has reached to the last highest point. So you have come to this point, and from this point upward, the prosperity phase starts actually, right? So you got a peak and trough. From the trough, you have the recovery period, and from the recovery period, you have the prosperity. And the height of the prosperity becomes the peak, and again it starts declining, and the cycle this way continues. So my question to all of you is, how will a government use the four tools of fiscal policy in line with the business cycle? I think I have already answered this question. Remember, government has a responsibility, government has an objective. The objective the government has to ensure that there is all-inclusive growth, and for ensuring the all-inclusive growth, government has to use the fiscal policy, and the four tools of the fiscal policy. And the four tools of the fiscal policy are: number one, the capital expenditure; number two is the borrowing; number three is the taxes; and number four is the budget. So the government has to use all these four components with a view to ensure that depending on what phase the economy is in, correct steps are taken. So if the economy is on a decline mode, then the government has to boost the capital expenditure, bring the interest cost down, reduce the taxes, and reduce the borrowing so that there is more money with the people. And when there is more money with the people, there will be more economic activity. Contrary are going to be the policy when it is in the expansionary phase, but it may not be linearly contrary, but conceptually it should be actually. So this, friends, is your
government expenditure. The first thing, government expenditure is the capital expenditure only, not human expenditure.
Government expenditure is capital expenditure. Yes, capital expenditure. Yes.
It's not the revenue.
Yeah, capital expenditure, because see, revenue expenditure will happen in any case. Capital expenditure is something which the government is going to spend. So maybe the government will spend more money on the infrastructure projects. So that becomes the additional expenditure, and that additional expenditure which the government incurs on the capital expenditure, it puts more money into the system, and then it serves as a multiplier, resulting into. See, I'm sure you can understand, if the government is spending more money on the infrastructure, it is not only spending, so it is setting a chain reaction in motion. So the supplier will have supplier, his supplier will has his supplier, and like that actually. So then you will have an economic activity. So this is only capital expenditure, Kamal. Thankfully, it is only capital expenditure, not the revenue expenditure. By increasing the revenue expenditure, you will not be able to help the economy. On the contrary, if the government is increasing the revenue expenditure, it is detrimental to the economy. On the contrary, what the government should do, reduce the revenue expenditure and use that money for capital expenditure. And why for the capital expenditure? Please understand, because when you incur on the capital expenditure, you are generating, you are creating, you are increasing the revenue earning capacity. And any economy can do well, any individual can do well only when he is increasing his revenue earning capacity. So what is applicable to an individual is also applicable to a country. So if the country has to do well, country has to increase its income. Yeah. All right. Okay, friends. So with this, we can now move to the next topic, and the next topic is now we will shift to. Let me share the next topic.